So thank you, everyone on the panel. Amazing. Love your experience. It's so great to have you. So the one big question I have for everyone is, how do you communicate risk to the board?
Should I take it from?
Yeah.
Should I take it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good afternoon, everybody. I don't see any response. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, when we are talking about the context of cybersecurity, every time a cybersecurity professional is treated as a technically competent person, having expertise in managing what? Managing cybersecurity? No. Managing risk. So every cybersecurity professional is a risk manager. That is the baseline. And when we talk about going to the board and telling them what the risk is, they will not understand my firewall, how many ports are opened or closed. My board does not, in fact, understand what is SIM, what is SOAR, what is Active Directory risk, what is application security risk, what is vulnerability management and patch management. They talk in the domain of risk. Please tell us what is the total IT risk we have, which actually can be quantified to actually measure the overall operational risk. Correct? So in our organization, what we have laid is, we have laid a structure of effective cybersecurity governance, effective risk management, and compliance culture. So when we go to the board, we tell them, okay, this is the area wherein you have a major risk or a true risk of this value, which comes in from these segments, and this is what you have. Because at the end of it, the cybersecurity is all about quantification, about measurements and metrics. So we have defined a lot of measurements and metrics wherein we go back to the board and tell them, this is an area wherein we see the risk, and this risk have this much impact on the operational risk. And when we talk about operational risk, overall operational risk will be this much, and that's how we communicate the risk.
Great point.
Yep.
Please.
Many of the points which I wanted to cover, he covered. But when I look at my interactions with the senior executives and many boards from the consulting side to the corporate side, what has changed is we moved away from bar charts, then we went to bubble charts, then we had more of risk heat maps. But now we are more or less talking on the terms of dollar values. So as much as we wanted to show a lot of charts, which I think Sumit brought it very well in his presentation about having a lot of dashboards. But the simple question the CFO asks today is, what is the perceived impact I'm going to have in the business? Say, the risk to the organization or risk to a specific line of business, it differs. So a line of business that generates 200 million having a high risk is different from a line of business that generates 6 billion having a different risk perspective. So it's the dollar terms which at least organizations I have been consulting and also now working on is more interested to look at.
Yeah. Great point. Thank you. Others?
Thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, thanks Qualys to shaping up this particular conversations, dialogue in the communities. Much needed. I think it's a delayed, but there's always good time to start something right. 3 points. I think if you look at the business leadership and the executive management, they are well aware of cyber risk issue concerns. They no more look at it as a cost to do business, but they know it's most of the cases make or break a story for them. So they all know what it means. But then it puts very different sort of expectations to the security leadership or CISOs. And traditionally, CISOs or security team has always been defining a lot of KRIs, KPIs. If you look at technologies, technical debt, misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, that has been our way of life. If you look at the people side, training, awareness, phishing test results, Now the compliance risk is coming, lot of regulations with very fines, penalties. So we have been doing all this work and putting them in a bracket, high, low, medium. But then whenever you present these figures or this risk to the board or the leadership, there is a very one simple question, so what? You can describe in terms of system outage, data loss, but it doesn't ring the right bell. Unless you say that, okay, this means impact of X dollar. And there where the conversation start happening. Then it's now challenge for us, a community, to understand what business want. Unless we are able to contextualize our risk in terms of business loss or the opportunities, we are losing the dialogue at the boardroom. And there where we all have a lot to learn from coming evolutions on the cyber risk quantifications. That's all.
Great
That's my
point.
view.
Yeah, good insight.
Sure. Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon to my peers and good afternoon, everyone. So my picture depicts that I'm CISO and DPO for Adani Group. Let me be categorically individualistic. So I am heading as CISO and DPO for Adani Digital, Adani Artificial Intelligence Labs, and NDTV. Now, when I talk about explaining risk to a business, there is a simple formula to it. There is a term by the name of TRIC. T stands for threat, R stands for risk, I stands for impact, and C stands for consequence. For example, there is a ransomware which is hovering in the dark web. That is exactly the threat. What is a risk? You have unpatched operating systems in your environment, which is a risk. The impact is your operating systems could go encrypted, which could halt operations. And consequences, there is a financial irregularity or there is a regulatory irregularity which could come. The most important factor here is reputational loss, because even if revenue loss could be incurred maybe in 1 year or 2 years, but once reputation is gone, everything is gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Qualys, for hosting us here. What I'm going to share is my personal opinion, cannot be attributed to my employer. What do I tell the board? What they want to hear. And no, I'm not trying to say I want to tell them only the good stories. I want to tell them transparently what is the truth. That's one. The other piece that I'd like to share is, in my experience, the board wants to know not necessarily everything quantified. It could also be qualitative. For example, we made whatever number of investments in a specific aspect of a project. How good are we now? Is there anything more to do? Should the board know anything that needs to be material enough? That aspect of materiality, several of my colleagues covered a plethora of aspects of the security program that matter. But then how good we are and where else should the board be really interested to know? It may go on to a 10K filing or what have you if you're a US listed company. Those things matter in my mind to the board. So instead of boring them, I tell them what they want to hear.
Great points. So I'm going to ask a really hard question. How do you determine whether you should accept a risk or not?
How do you determine whether you accept the risk or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're going to accept a finding, a vulnerability, a risk, how do you do that?
Sure. In my mind, it's also an art. It's not necessarily a science. And aspects like what risk appetite you carry in your business, whether you're capable to suffer or take in a certain piece of loss. I think one of the speakers earlier mentioned installing $1 million security camera to protect a 10,000 rupee asset or dollar asset. It's not going to be worth it. So what is the trade-off is basically the deciding factor. Do you accept the risk based on a certain preconditioning of your biases, if you may, where you know that a possibility of a ransomware is likely to impact due to lack of controls or what have you, will determine your ability to, and then as a human sort of psychology, you tend to behave in a certain way. You may be risk averse and sometimes you're a little bit more bold and audacious. That also conditions how you think, but risk appetite is probably the tether I'd bank on.
Others?
Sure. In my opinion, you need to quantify a risk. You need to do a heat mapping.
Yeah.
You need to inculcate financial irregularities with it. And always remember, information security team will always highlight the risk. It will never own it. The business has to own it. And you basically need to derive with a formula which is risk rating is equal to likelihood into impact. To give an example, say there is a vulnerability which is affecting Apache Tomcat server. But in my ecosystem, I only have one instance of it. So for me, the risk rating will be low rather than critical for some enterprise where the instances will be more. So you need to quantify the risk and then ask the business whether they want to remediate it with a mitigation plan or they want to accept the risk. Thank you.
I think as a CISO, it's a risk co-ownership with the business. You can't simply take your own risk appetite or your risk perspective into the decisions. So first challenge, how well you articulate that risk in the context of his business. A lot of your domain knowledge comes to help the business leader to understand what is it all about, what is the probability of getting it realistically hit, and what happens when it gets hit, what will be the impact. The more you are able to articulate, I think there is a better clarity between you and business to understand that whether this can be taken or not. We are not yet there. Sometimes we look at just level of technical data details, but we are getting there. We are getting there with the help of business to understand, okay, if it is customer facing, internet, I think leadership itself understands there is a very less risk tolerance. But if there is a development server not holding any critical data, you will be able to adjust this risk appetite for that business unit. So that sort of fine tuning always goes. It's not a very static formula. You have to look at overall situation and then help business to take that decisions.
Yeah, great points. You're next.
Yeah.
So how do we do impact?
Okay.
How do we define impact?
Impact is not specific to cybersecurity alone. So I'll link it up with the aspect you talked about, accepting the risk. So what we have is a multi-stakeholder materiality risk committee, which has members beyond cyber and just business. Because it's not just cybersecurity risk. There are people risk, reputation risks, financial risks. There are many aspects that can cause a risky item to an organization. So I, as a cybersecurity professional, do not go and say, this is riskier, so we need to take action. There are going to be a multi-stakeholder group, and I like that panel also. So it's a multi-stakeholder framework that you've captured. That's exactly, the committee decides whether is this a risk that warrants us to take an action as an organization at a level it requires. So obviously, you can't decide a risk without understanding the impact of it. Impact could be a system going down or a business process going down, or even we not able to do certain transactions. So there is obviously we try to quantify as much as possible, but it's not possible always to quantify everything. So a method of both qualitative and quantitative measurement to see how we can determine impact of an event and club it across with multiple cohesive events to decide whether that impact is so high that risk will change. So that's the way we do it.
Great. Good point. Please, impact. How do you measure? How do you quantify?
Okay. So as far as risk quantification or risk measurement is considered, when we are talking about, for example, vulnerability and vulnerability exploitation and resultant risk, which has an impact, if we see the BFSI sector all across, usually what we used to do was the quantification usually happened by way of getting the CVSS scores all across, identifying the static CVSS values, and then hitting them all across. I'm telling you a practical case scenario of BFSI. What was happening across banking industry was, we used to run a static scan or a quarterly scan, or we have the external partners who do the vulnerability assessment and PT exercises on quarterly basis or on monthly basis, or we have internal tools who do it. and they throw a lot of vulnerabilities all across the domains because there are diverse systems having diverse asset classifications. For example, we have critical assets, we have non-critical assets, we have test systems, we have UAT systems, we have production systems, we have transactional systems facing internet, and we have back office systems which do not have any internet exposure. But when we used to run the static scans, we used to get the CVSS values, and then when we used to present it to our management and board that these are the vulnerabilities, to be very honest, it was rather very difficult not only for the management to digest, but the technical teams to work on those vulnerabilities. It is not possible that I give them a list of 50,000 vulnerabilities today, and then second week I tell them, okay, you have closed these 50,000, you close another 40,000. Not possible. And at that point of time, the regulator also as well was of the opinion, okay, no, you have not done your due diligence, and you have these many critical, these many high, these many medium, these many low risks, and now you will be penalized. But then the entire scenario has changed by way of quantifying the risk based on risk evaluation or risk assessment. So today when we are talking about risk assessment, I think Sumit spoke about this in his presentation. We do a comprehensive risk assessment in terms of what is the actual risk we have. We assess the risk, and based on the assessment of the risk, we see what is the external context of the risk, what is the internal context of the risk, what is the exploitability, what is the chatter in the domain, whether it is an active risk or not, and based on that, we actually treat the risk. A risk of having a vulnerability in my web server which is exposed to the internet is far higher than a risk of a web server which has no internet connectivity, which is serving my internal domain, correct? So that is how the risk classification and risk quantification happens. And to speak a bit in the context, I head a bank which is actually in the UT of J&K, and I'm sure you know Jammu and Kashmir very well, correct? Each one of you know Jammu and Kashmir. And we have seen this in action during entire Pahalgam fiasco and post-Pahalgam skirmish which happened between India and Pakistan. Believe me, we have seen, when we are talking about cyber risk or we are talking about risk, we have seen this entire thing manifesting across the domain. I'm just sharing my experience with me. Sorry, I'm taking 2-3 minutes more on this. Immediately after Pahalgam attack, we could see huge number of attacks on the infrastructure across country. We know that everybody has recorded it. But on the banking and finance infrastructure of J&K Bank, including entire government. Now, the beauty was we had done our due diligence in terms of quantifying the risk on our external perimeter at that point of time, which was very essential and important for us, and we were very secure. Thankfully, we were able to resist the attacks which came in. And if you see on the recorded, it's in the public domain, out of 175 government services which were running in this UT of J&K, 150 plus were hacked. 150 were hacked, and thankfully, we were the bank who still resisted it, which was appreciated by not only by the peer banks, by the regulator as well. The only lesson which I have learned, or which we have learned as a bank, is that, believe me, cyber security cannot be taken lightly. It's not, I was taken in as an advisor to the government of UT of J&K, wherein we discussed threadbare that cyber security is not an one-off activity that you run scan today and then wait for next scan to happen 6 months down the line. You cannot tell me that I have done a security audit of my entire services and now you don't need any protection. Risk management is the basic protection as per cyber security framework, and we need to have this in place. And risk quantification, its assessment, its treatment, and once you put a control onto minimizing the risk, then I think Salesh touched it very well in his talk, that whether you do the control risk as well, the control which you have placed, whether that is working or not, correct? So this is important and essential, and we do it, yes. Thank you.
So great. Thank you. All right. Last question for the panelists. We have great content. Thank you so much. How important is it to confirm that a vulnerability is exploitable? So if you think about you're going to go in, right? You're going to determine this is my true risk score, but is it exploitable? How important is that for your decision making? Please.
Sure. Definitely relevant. But I would add, in that context, if the exposability is actually exposed, meaning if there are a myriad of controls against which the asset is already protected, how urgently do you need to take action? I'm not denying that action needs to be taken, but let's say a particular CV came out on Chrome, needs to be fixed, yes, agreed. And exploitable, super fast, do it. But if it has other controls that are protecting, mitigating it in the shorter term, you don't need to lose your sleep and chase that thing as well. So don't be an alarmist.
Actually, this is something I told Deb Himanshu 4 months back.
Deb.
Yeah, that we need to have proof of exploitability. That's an important factor because we cannot live with a perception that there is a vulnerability, so everything is going to go bad. Right. I also do not want to wait till someone really exploits it. Rather, I should have a mechanism. I'll be able to prove that this is exploitable, which today I saw Sailesh confirming in India that that's coming up. That's a very good thing from Qualys to have done that. I want to think I motivated you to do it, but I do not know, but nevertheless, I'll take the credit of that. But having said that, exploitability is very important to get the perception right. Yes. Is it going to be exploitable? Or yes, it is exploitable because I'm able to do it. I'm a salaried person. If I'm able to do it, a person whose only job is to do that, and an unknown gentleman somewhere, or not a gentleman, an unknown person somewhere trying to take exploitability is the most important thing I feel, and that Qualys has done the right thing, Jonathan. Thanks to you also.
Great, thank you.
And I will add to it is that earlier on, when we used to run these scans, yes, we used to see, okay, this is the true risk or this is the risk. But how do you prove the exploitability? That's what was an interesting question from the regulatory standpoint as well. I recall that when regulators used to come, we used to tell them, okay, this is the true risk. But then they used to say, okay, this is the true risk and you have not fixed it. If this is the true risk with you, why you have not fixed it? But then we used to tell them, okay, this is the true risk on this platform. But if you see, I already have a compensatory control put on the endpoint on the host as an endpoint security. But my problem as on today has been that this endpoint was never talking to that platform to give me a unified view of the risk. But thankfully, I could see it today very well articulated wherein event correlation is happening somewhere. Earlier on, this correlation of data was not possible. For example, I have the feed coming in from security scorecard. I have the feed coming in from other external attack surface monitoring tools, and I have the Qualys with me. I have CNAPP solution working in a separate silo. I have internal endpoint security put in. I have NAC solution giving me something. Active Directory giving me some data about identities. I could not have a holistic view of this entire on a single dashboard, and I was pleasantly surprised. Means hats off to you, and we are able to at least see that console coming up now. So that's how it is.
Yeah. Great point. Please comment. I brought this up for a very specific reason, right? Because most of my team's time is spent on, is it exploitable? Yeah. Probably 80% of my time and my team's time is on that. And if we can do that for you, how impactful will that be?
I think in this case, exactly I follow the methodology is, according to the business, we have to segregate the risk. For example, for Adani Digital Labs, because it is a platform which is online on web and mobile, for me, remote code execution, elevation of privilege, vulnerabilities will always be on priority. Absolutely. Local exploits, browser-based exploits, document-based exploits will be taken care by something from endpoint protection. For example, if I bifurcate an architecture, any architecture in the world, that will be access layer, core, and distribution, and you have different devices in there. But most of the security devices are reactive in nature. By reactive, I mean, unless and until it will give you an alert, already the damage is done. For example, in case of DLP. So in my purview, detection capabilities will always overpower prevention. And according to a business ecosystem, you have to define which vulnerabilities you should be taken care of first and then last. Because everything can't be critical in nature. In case it is, then you are at a wrong place.
I think I will repeat some of the first hour of this conference. If I have money and the resource, I will like to do every vulnerability to be patched today.
Sure.
But that's the reality, it's not going to happen. Then I have to find a smart way of doing it. And when I have to find a smart way, these are the factors I have to consider in my decision and prioritizations. Lot of things, exploitably, campaigns, ATP actors, my industries, then local environment, business context, development, internet expose. So yes, vulnerability in isolations is not a challenge anybody can take. That's a given. So we have to look at how we convert this vulnerability to the risk. And that's what discussions we are having since morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll add to it. Not all vulnerabilities can manifest into risks.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. There are vulnerabilities which we may have to take a stand that these are not to be addressed at all. So,
yeah. So in short, I think keep doing that,
Yeah.
financing or making final details of each vulnerability, how it can hit me. And we will continue to follow the technology to help us. That's the
Great. So I see the time. We've got like 4 minutes. And I'm going to push you on a really tough question. How do you decide if you'll accept risk?
So again, the question.
What do you need to ensure that you will accept a risk? Or that the business will?
see, risk acceptance finally boils down to what is the risk appetite of the organization. Correct? If there is a defined risk appetite of an organization that up to this quantification value they can accept the risk or they can transfer the risk for that matter, fair enough. But let me tell you, for BFSI kind of sector and for a bank like us, who is a very, very, very small bank as compared to big banks of the country, the risk acceptance level is zero, risk tolerance level is zero. So it would invariably mean if somebody has to accept the risk, we will identify the risk, we will evaluate the risk, we will put it up to the business that this is the risk which is there, and then the business has to take a call whether they can put up certain controls to actually minimize this risk, but then they have to bring it down to a level wherein it is as per the risk appetite. If the business is not able to bring down the risk below the risk appetite levels, even board will not accept the risk. Nobody is going to take a call on the risk which is open-ended. Correct? So that is the fact of life.
Great. Yeah. Others?
So, yeah.
Hard question.
No, it's a very hard question, but easy answer for me. I'm not paid to accept the risk. My job is to say what the risk is and provide alternate solutions or alternate mitigating aspects. And it's end of the day, the business leaders who take the decision. So in that sense, it's not a very difficult question, easy question. So I give that.
I'll add to it, but a very interesting thing which I have seen over a period of my career as a security practitioner is that if we as security practitioners are able to communicate the risk to the business, believe me, nobody in business takes the decision of bypassing that risk or accepting that risk. Oh. Nobody in business takes a call, okay, if there is so much of risk, let us accept it. So everybody will try to minimize the risk, mitigate the risk, and if there is a residual risk, pass it on to the risk, transfer the risk to some third party like insurance and all. So nobody will accept the risk in toto. So somewhere everybody has to work on minimizing the risk.
So I know we're at time, but this is the most foundational thing that we're working on at Qualys. Like, how can I help you and your teams automate risk decision-making?
I think, let me put just 2-3 things which we say in what circumstances you cannot accept a risk. I think that's clear cut because in no case you are going to take any risk which is regulatory in nature. No matter, no discussion, you cannot take a discussions. Then second, you start saying that is the risk contained within this business, these systems, or this is a global in nature? Because if it is global in nature, I think the stakeholders are far, far wider, including your all board of managements. And there where you put saying that even a business leader say, I can take this risk, you will not allow that risk to be taken because it has cascading impact on the entire enterprise. Then come up with this very content within an environment. Then I just said earlier, you have to articulate what is the probability, how much money one can lose, what will be the impact. Reputation is very difficult to quantify in terms of money and all those things. And I think most of the cases, business leaders are able to pick up how much risk they can really take.
Good point. Time's up. I have a big red time's up, but keep going. So I think compliance, what I'm hearing is compliance, if you're compliant and you can automate compliance, you're okay. If you can't do compliance and you have a risk that gets exploited, you're in trouble.
Yeah, with respect to adhering to different compliances, those could be regulatory, those could be financial. Those decisions are usually taken by the business. But when business says, I am reluctant for this risk for which you are asking for people, process, and tech to mitigate, they say reluctance on face, but once it is time to approve an exception, they just vanish. So the methodology here is, you can say that to mitigate risk X, I could have an EDR with automated patching capabilities, which could bring the risk 80% down. That is a way to make them understand. But still, we are all working towards it. It's still in pipeline.
Great point. Great point.
I know time is up. I'll keep it short. If the risk acceptance is in my realm of work, I will accept it if my confidence of the mitigating controls are to my desired levels of choice.
No, good point. So thank you. Hopefully this was educational. I think I love this conversation because risk acceptance, how we make those decisions, is probably one of the most important questions we have. Right? Like, you know, every day Sumedh is telling me, hey, it's your call. You accept this risk, which means it's my job on the line, but how do I make that call, right? Like, how do I make that decision? So I think TrueConfirm, a lot of the work we're doing there is going to really, really give all of us better insight into deciding that. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.